going to be presented today by Carolyn Shadoy. Jim Harrington is unable to join us today, but Carolyn will do a great job. So thank you. My name is Christine Norton. I'm the Parenting Awareness Michigan Program Coordinator for Prevention Network. Louise Harder is also the Executive Director with Prevention Network, and she's going to be helping with any chats and any Q&A. This is a Zoom webinar, not a Zoom meeting, so you're all muted to help with limit distractions. We do want to hear from you. So please, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A window. Any tech issues, please put them in the chat window, and we will monitor those. If you're requiring CEUs today, please put your name, full name with an email address in the chat window. At the end of today's webinar, I will also put a link to the evaluation, and you'll get it again on Monday. As soon as that evaluation is completed, you will get your certificate emailed to you. We will be generating polls throughout this hour, so to help learn what our audience needs is today. And we will also be recording today's session, which will be available on our website. So I'd like to introduce Carolyn Shadoy. She is with the public health consultant at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. She is the lead consultant for the electronic cigarette product for the state of Michigan, and Carolyn received her Master for Public Health from Western Michigan University. Thank you, Carolyn. Take it away.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I'm so happy to have everyone here today to sit in and learn more about e-cigarettes. And I believe we have one poll question before we get started. Just so we can, yep, there's the poll. So I'm going to give everyone just a second to answer this question and press submit, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at those answers. So whenever we feel like the majority of people have answered this poll, we can go ahead and close that and see the results. So this poll question says, how familiar with e-cigarettes are you?
So around
okay.
5% have a good understanding, 43% some knowledge, and 11% this is my first webinar.
Great. So it looks like we have a really good mix today. So I'm very excited to see this. So we're going to go ahead and, really jump right into today, because we do have a lot of information to share, and just within this hour. So know that everyone has these slides. And what I also wanted to let you know was that when you get the slide set, I do have a lot of these slides that are annotated, and they have some great additional resources and references. So you can go ahead and take another look if that's something that you're interested in. So the highlights for today, and what we're really going to focus on, is describing how e-cigarettes operate and to be able to really visually identify them. E-cigarettes are always changing. There's always new products on the market. And, there's a couple new ones that I've heard are the must try for 2021. So I have some of those included in today's presentation. Then we're going to talk about some public health consequences. We're going to talk about safety, health concerns, and we also have a few slides in here about, the correlation with COVID and then COVID-19, and also with tobacco products as well. So I'm sure that's something that many people are wondering about. Then we're going to talk about why our youth and young adults are using these products. And then I'm going to leave you today with some great resources to utilize. All right, so what's an e-cigarette, and how does this thing really work? So this image here is actually a first generation e-cigarette, so they don't really look like this anymore, but all of the same components are the same within these newer generation e-cigarettes that we have on the market today. So here you can see in this image that it's broken down. You have a battery, a voltage control, a heating coil, which would then heat up this vaporizing chamber. This vaporizing chamber is where any of the liquid nicotine or any other liquid substance would be converted to aerosol from liquid into aerosol. So here, what you can see is that, let me see if I can have my little pointer here, laser. Pointer? Perfect. So at this end of the e-cigarette is where whoever is using it would inhale, and then it would trigger an LED light and this whole system here. And so the battery would trigger the voltage, which would trigger the heating coil, and then that vaporizing chamber. And here are just a couple bulleted points that I thought that everyone might want to be aware of when they're talking about these products. So it's actually going to allow the inhalation of an aerosol into the lungs, and then the disposable or rechargeable are available. And like I said, no matter which kind of e-cigarette it is, it still has these same components. So the cartridges are actually going to be filled with either liquid nicotine, the flavorings, and any other type of liquid substance that could be put into these devices. And I'm going to get into talking about some flavorings just a little bit later. But like I said, that heating coil is really going to convert that content from a liquid into an aerosol. So I mentioned that other substances, other liquid substances could also be used in these products. So 1/3 of middle school and high school students said that they actually use non-nicotine substances inside their products. When Juul was popular, which still is popular now, 1 in 3 youth said that they actually use marijuana, the liquid THC, with the Juul device. This is very concerning because we know that many of these hash oils can actually reach up to 95% pure THC. And when I say 95% pure THC, I'm talking about that psychoactive component of marijuana. So really high concentrations could cause side effects like temporary psychosis. The percentage that I'm listing here should concern you all, because when we're talking about the percentage of pure THC, for instance, that would be in a joint or a blunt, that reaches about 7 to 8%. So that's a big difference between a 7% and 95%. And another thing to take note of is that when someone is using an e-cigarette with liquid THC, it's actually odorless. So you're not going to get that traditional marijuana smell that you would if you were just using a joint or a blunt. With these oils and the liquid of the THC, it's odorless. We've also heard a lot of other substances being used in these products. Before COVID, I was able to be in a lot of the schools and talking with a lot of different communities that were doing some surveys within their high schools. And on a lot of the surveys, it came back saying that, kids were putting alcohol in these products, or they were crushing opioids and making their own solutions and putting them into these devices. We've also heard that people have been using, bath salts, cocaine, heroin. So many, many different substances could be used in these products. So that's something we really need to look out for. So when someone says, oh, I use an e-cigarette, we really want to follow up that question by saying, well, what substance are you using in these products? All right. So you've heard me use the word aerosol and not the word vapor, because what people are breathing in and out when they're using these devices is actually an aerosol, not a vapor. Vapor is harmless. Like for instance, this morning when I used my hot water kettle and I made my morning tea, that vapor that came out of that steam that came out of my hot water kettle, that's vapor, that's harmless. But what people are inhaling when they're using these products is similar to like what we would say like a spray paint can or hairspray. So aerosol is different than vapor. And, that's just something that we really want to try to correct. And we know the vaping industry chose the word vaping and vapor because it sounds harmless. And it's also not as easy to say, oh, well, today I'm aerosolizing. It just doesn't roll off the tongue as quickly as vaping does. So that's another thing that we really want to have a takeaway for today, is that this is an aerosol, not a vapor. So this is an image from the CDC. Many of you have probably seen this image. If not, this is a great image to kind of start off with, to know what's found in these products. So in this image, this character is exhaling what they were breathing in. So it shows what is found in that aerosol. So a lot of harmful substances. We're seeing nicotine, ultrafine particles, organic compounds, cancer-causing chemicals, heavy metals like nickel, tin, and lead. And that's something to think about, because with combustible cigarettes, we don't have the nickel, tin, and lead. So this is something new that we need to kind of also pay a little bit of attention to here, that these heavy metals are now being inhaled as well. And then also flavorings. So flavorings is also something that is very dangerous with these products. A lot of the flavorings, like diacetyl, is actually linked to a lot of serious lung injuries and diseases. Something similar to COPD, it's called bronchiolitis obliterans, or like this little image here shows, it's called popcorn lung. So you may have heard the term popcorn lung. If not, this is the common term that a lot of people will use when we're talking about flavorings and what those types of lung diseases that can occur. The reason why they call it popcorn lung is because there were a large amount of factory workers in a butter popcorn factory that were actually coming down with lung diseases, and they weren't understanding why. And it was because they were actually inhaling those flavorings all day while they were working. And what I want to make clear is that ingesting and inhaling are two separate things. Our digestive tract and our respiratory tract are two separate linings. So it's still okay to eat, digest, and digest the flavorings, like when we eat our foods, because, like I always say, what would life be without like some flavor, right? To spice it up. But, when we inhale flavorings, that's different, because our respiratory tract is very different. And we're finding, again, that these flavorings are causing a lot of these lung diseases and harm. So what I like to do is I always like to show a few common household items, or a few items that people are aware of that they have seen. So when people say, well, what really is in all of these e-cigarette products? You can kind of name a few items that people might be aware of. Like, for instance, the metals that are found in batteries, chemicals that are found in nail polish, things that are found in nail polish remover, antifreeze, paint thinner, herbicides and pesticides, gasoline, rubber tires, oil-based paint. So sometimes using like those big fancy terms and those really long terms that none of us can really say properly, it's just more relatable to say, well, hey, did you know that things that you're inhaling when you're using an e-cigarette, it's the same stuff that you find in gasoline and batteries? So it kind of brings it to something more real that people can relate to. So this is just a few of the thousand of harmful chemicals and toxins, carcinogens that could be found within these products. So just kind of wanted to highlight this here, so that if people ask, you can have a couple items on hand that you can let them know about. All right, so what e-cigarettes are not. This is a very important slide, because there have been a lot of questions, a lot of concerns surrounding whether or not these products are actually a quit tobacco device. So e-cigarettes are not an approved FDA or US Food and Drug Administration quit tobacco device. So they really shouldn't be marketed as such. I know that we have heard many stories of people who have been combustible cigarette users who have used e-cigarettes to quit, but then they also quit using the e-cigarettes as well. So we never want to discredit or put down anyone who has been successfully tobacco free. But when you want to truly be tobacco free, you shouldn't be using these products as well. So as I mentioned, they're not an approved quit tobacco device. We have FDA medications that are available for that. But we see here that many of these devices are actually promoting and marketing them as safe devices to use. E-health cigarette. Never did I think in my public health career that I would see that on a box. And, a lot of these products, like the older generation products of e-cigarettes, the blue, very similar to what Juul is now had done, is saying that, why quit, switch to blue, or make the switch to Juul. There's a lot of other products out there, the new safe cig, the clean cig. So many of these products are being marketed as safer and safe and, something to help you quit using tobacco. So now is a really good part that I like to, review some of the products that are out there, because, I feel like it's very important to be able to identify these products, especially when you want to talk about them with, community and family and friends and clients and patients, things like that. So this is the Juul. I am sure by now everyone may have heard about the Juul. If not, that's okay. This was one of the more popular devices that really hit the market and really boomed here across in the US. It comes in 3 pieces. So you have the charging dock that looks just like a USB drive. You have the body of the device that holds the charge. And then you have the pod, which is the mouthpiece, and then that flavor element of that e-juice that's in that pod. So that mouthpiece goes right into the body, just like how it shows here in the image. This e-cigarette is very sleek. It's meant to be very lightweight. It fits within your fingers, just like how a combustible cigarette would. But many people really don't hold it like that. They really hold it just in the palm of their hand and take a hit off of it that way. And then something to also be aware of is that each of these pods, they like to say that it's good for about 200 puffs, but that just depends on, whoever's using the device. Some people might take deeper hits of this product. Some people might just take a couple. So really, to know how long it'll last is up to whoever's using the product. But what's also really interesting to know is that one pod is the equivalent of about a pack and a half of cigarettes. So we're talking nicotine content. So think about how when many of our youth and young adults say that they use 2, 3, 4 pods a day, and multiplied that by 1.5, because when I have a pack and a half of cigarettes, that's how much nicotine people are getting on a daily basis, which is no wonder people are getting hooked on these products much faster, because more nicotine is within these products. So I mentioned e-juice and juices that could be either found within the product or with a pod. So with the Juul, you don't need to purchase these e-juices. It's actually already pre-filled into those into that pod. But when you have other devices, you need the e-juice. And here's a comparison. On the right-hand side of your screen is what the e-juices used to look like years ago. But now on the right of your screen, this is what these e-juices look like now. They are bigger. They look more attractive. The packaging is more colorful, and the flavors look more enticing. Rainbow drop, pineapple fruit splash, strawberry crisp. I mean, these flavors, they sound great. And if we were in person today, I would be passing around these products so that you could give them a smell and just see how good they smell. So again, the packaging is different. The flavors are there, and they're more enticing than just regular mango or regular strawberry or cowboy blend. So these flavors, they look good, and they smell good, and they sound great. So again, these are a few different types of e-cigarettes. They don't look like a combustible cigarette. They don't look like the Juul. These products really fit in the palm of your hand, and when you close your hand into a fist, many of these devices will be hidden in your hand. So Soren and Smoke is another brand of e-cigarette. So is the Cree. So Soren, they made some of these devices look more like common items that you might find or come across. So the Soren Drop to me really looks like a highlighter that kids would use in school. Or I do believe that there are some of those like those power drinks where you can drop in, you know, certain drops into your drink to make it have like extra electrolytes and things like that. But this Soren comes in colors like bright yellow, bright pink, bright blue, bright green, all colors that are highlighters. The Soren Air comes in different colors as well, but this one to me looks just like a battery pack. So let's say you're going out for a hike, in our beautiful state of Michigan, and your battery gets low. Many people use these battery packs of boosters to give you your cell phone an extra boost. So this device looks very similar to one of those. And I have the arrow pointing there to show you where the mouthpiece is. Because again, now it's very sleek, and it's not noticeable that this is an e-cigarette because you don't see that mouthpiece. Then there's the Rolo badge. This one comes in different colors as well, but I wanted to put this multicolored one there because I thought it looked pretty cool. But this one, again, you fill the e-juice and then you put the mouthpiece on top. And then that's how you would fill this device in, just like the Soren Drop in the Air. Those kind of gray colored tops come off, and that's where you would put the e-juice in. Then, believe it or not, there's actually an e-cigarette that looks like a circle. That's why it's called the UFO. And I have two arrows pointing there because this was one of the first e-cigarettes that had a double cartridge where you could fill in your e-juices into these devices. And, you know, for this one, I was told, especially because I went out to purchase all of these products at local vape shops. And, you know, they were like, oh, yeah, you can like mix and match your flavors and create your own flavors. So, you know, this is perfect. And, you know, like, do you carry a compact in your purse? Because this looks just like a makeup compact or just like a little mirror. So again, these companies are making these products to be very sleek and not look like a combustible cigarette because, you know, they just don't want it to look like that because a lot of people who are using these products, either they weren't combustible cigarette users, a lot of the youth, they weren't cigarette users in the past, and they don't want to use cigarettes. So they want these products that don't look like that. So another one here that was pretty concerning to me, and the reason why I wanted to share it with you today was because this one says that it has a childproof lock. It says that if you click the lock key 5 times, it would unlock the device. So being that I wanted to know everything and anything about these devices, I purchased this one, and some of my colleagues and I, we were trying to see if it actually locked or if the device would like work and turn on. Unfortunately, you know, not to my surprise or to our surprise, it does still work, even with that childproof lock saying that it can be clicked in. So again, just another example of how many of these companies are actually now promoting safety, not only for the user, but also for children so that, you know, their kids can't get into this product. So, you know, really unfortunate that they're taking that route. So the Miko kit to me looks just like a little GoPro camera. I'm very active. You know, I love being outside, hiking, biking. And if I was to see this on a lanyard on someone's neck or wrist, without knowing that this was an e-cigarette, I would just think that this person was like, wow, they're getting some really good footage on their GoPro today, like going, you know, down these beautiful paths that we have. Again, another sleek design. It fits perfectly in the palm of your hand, and the mouthpiece fits in between your thumb and your pointer finger. So if you close your fist again, you won't be able to see this device. So now something very important that I want everyone to know is that disposable e-cigarettes have been on the rise. Just within the past year, disposable e-cigarettes have gone up about 1,000% of rates of people using these products. So these products have really, you know, become popular. And there's a few reasons for that. So the disposable e-cigarettes can still sell all of these flavors. The Juul and other pod-based systems can only sell menthol and tobacco Virginia Slim because in January of 2020, there was a a ruling that came out on the federal level saying that all pod-based and pre-filled cartridges cannot sell flavored flavored e-juices. So that meant that anyone that was getting a e-cigarette that you needed a pod or a pre-filled cartridge for, you could only get menthol or tobacco, Virginia Slim. So many of these companies went to looking towards disposables because disposables, unfortunately, were left out of that rule that was put forth in 2020 of January. So again, these disposables are really making, I guess, a loud splash in the e-cigarette world because they can still continue to be selling all of these fruity flavors. What I mentioned too in the beginning, I showed you here that the pod for a Juul was about a pack and a half. This was taken from Tobacco Prevention Toolkit at Stanford. This image just showcases the different amount of nicotine that is found between different products. So one puff bar that I just talked about, which was a disposable, is comparable to about 50 cigarettes, whereas a Soren pod that I showed you back, the Soren Drop or the Soren Air, that's comparable to about 90 cigarettes. So again, different products vary between how much nicotine they deliver. But I think this is a great infographic to use to showcase and show how many of the cigarettes are there, right? To know that nicotine content level between the products. So these are some of the images that I want everyone to be aware of, that they're all disposables, and these are all newer products that we're really making a big entrance into e-cigarettes. So again, these are ones to look out for 2021. Right now, these ones are the popular ones. We have the Bitty Stick, Hype. We have the Dinner Lady. We also have the Hype Max and the Hype Bar. So again, different versions of disposables, but also kind of looking like they're a little bit of the same shapes, right? These are some more disposables, just ones that are very popular. The Cali Bar, the Oro, the Modi Pin, and then the Posh Plus. Again, many of these are getting very popular because they're disposable and you can continue to get them in all of the flavors. Something to be aware of is that there's over 15,000 flavor combinations that are out there right now. So all of these products that I just showed you in the disposables would probably have the availability to be in any flavor that whoever's using these products would want to see. I know that this is not an e-cigarette, but I wanted to bring this up to you all today because I think it's very important to know about. There is something new on the market called Lucy Gum. This is not an NRT. So this is not like the gum that you would get for as a nicotine replacement therapy. This is actually just nicotine gum. To deliver those high levels of nicotine that people are wanting to see. And it comes in different flavors. Like here, it shows the wintergreen, pomegranate, and cinnamon. So again, this is another popular product that's out there. I know it's not an e-cigarette, but I wanted to showcase this to you all today just so that you know that this is out there. Also, like these products, they're also not e-cigarettes. They are the pouches. They're the nicotine pouches, but I wanted to showcase this today because I felt like it was also important to see that all of these flavors are there, and these nicotine pouches, which can just be put between your gum and your cheek, is something that is becoming more popular as well. And the IQOS, this is a product that I've been talking about for a while now, but now it is able to be sold in the US. It is being sold in many of our southern states, not quite hasn't quite made its way here to Michigan, but I do know that it will be on its way. So this is called an I Quit Ordinary Smoking, or a heat not burn cigarette. So this device, it actually has a blade at the bottom of this device, which when you press the button, it heats it up, and then it'll actually heat up this mini mini heat stick, they call it, but it's really just here, a little mini cigarette. So unfortunately, these devices, since they're heated, not burned, cause many problems because these products are a way to get around many of our smoke-free air laws that we have across our country and here in Michigan. So again, this product is not new, but it is new to the US. So unfortunately, I think it will be making its way up here to Michigan. So our previous US Surgeon General, Dr. Adams, declared a youth epidemic of e-cigarettes. So a public health epidemic, back in 2019 and 2018. And, it's, we're very thankful that he made this epidemic because we know that it is a very big problem. We know that there were surges. We know that the numbers have been rising since the time that it's become a youth epidemic. And so here's just a little blurb from that report. And in 2019, I wanted to show you all that 6.2 million US middle and high school students were actually using some form of tobacco. And the highest form of tobacco that our youth were using were e-cigarettes. You can see here that there are many other types of tobacco products that kids reported on during the survey. Hookah being at 3.4%, knowing that hookah is kind of regional here in Michigan. Many people might notice hookah bars and lounges more in our southeast part of Michigan. But there are a lot of hookah lounges that I have found across the state of Michigan as well. However, the majority of them are more on our southeast part of Michigan. So 2020, what was the data? What came here? High school students, and middle school students showed that it was a decrease. However, we were showing that almost 83% of those students said that they preferred flavored e-cigarettes. And so we know that still 3.6 million youth use these products. I sat in on many webinars and many conferences this year that talked about, these numbers. Is the reason why these numbers went down was because the social aspect of kids being in school was not there. Did these numbers go down because youth weren't able to get their hands on these products during, COVID times? So it's going to be very interesting to see what our 2021 data is and to also see what our 2022 data is when we know that our youth are going to be back in school and those social circles and that peer-to-peer pressure is there. So the adolescent brain, many of you being in the prevention world probably understand addiction and know that the adolescent brain is not matured until about age 25, 26. We know that nicotine addiction is more likely the earlier one initiates. So when I was mentioning, you think about some of our youth that were saying that, they were using three pods of the Juul in school hours. You can only imagine, how quickly these kids were being addicted. And we know that, with using nicotine, we're seeing mood disorders, lower impulse control, attention, and learning problems in many of our youth and young adults that are using these products. So I have a very large description in the annotated notes on this slide, but given the time that we have today, I'll let everyone kind of go back. And if you want to learn more about how nicotine works in the brain, I have those written out there in the bottom of the slide. So there's a couple of common myths that I think everyone should be aware of. I'm sure many of you have heard these myths or are probably going to hear them. So I've heard it's just water vapor. It's just flavoring, or my vape says it's nicotine free. There's no way I'll become addicted. Or we hear I don't have an addictive personality, so I won't get hooked on vapes. Just because I vape doesn't mean I'm going to smoke cigarettes, and nicotine isn't that bad for me. Just like in the previous slide, how I mentioned nicotine exposure during our younger years definitely disrupts the normal brain development, and it can have long-lasting effects. I have all of these articles in that annotated notes there if anyone wants to look back in on any of these specific myths. But something to remember is that here that nicotine does get delivered to the brain in less than 10 seconds. So, and like I mentioned, brains are still in development. So it definitely makes them more vulnerable to addiction here, just like how people are saying, I won't become addicted or I don't have that addictive personality. So, definitely a few things to think about and to kind of remember just because you will be hearing many of these questions. So why the rise in e-cigarette use right now? We're seeing the targeted market from the tobacco industry, the flavors. 15,000 plus flavors are there, and that's what's really attracting people to use. And then also the lack of regulation. So like I mentioned, there's over 15,000 flavors, and many of these flavors seem very enticing. Boom Boom Popsicle, bubble gum. What do we have here? Blueberry muffin. I mean, many of these flavors, I'm sure taste delicious. And many of them are very nostalgic. So when we think about popsicles, Dr. Pepper, Hawaiian Punch, Sundrop, Juicy Fruit Gum, I always like to say, I remember when I was a kid, used to like chase after, the ice cream truck. I always used to get one of these popsicles like on a hot summer. So thinking about it being and seeing if you were to see a flavor that, brings you back to, something that you remember as a kid or that you still remember when you're a kid, it would probably entice you to want to try that product. So, we have a lot of this targeted market. So social media right now is huge with our youth and young adults. And we know that social media platforms is a way that people are getting their marketing out. Jewel used to have an Instagram, but they don't anymore. They don't have Twitter. But these were some of their earlier posts. They used to get very young, attractive looking women to be a part of their campaigns and to attend their parties. But not only, when I'm mentioning these targeted marketings, kind of going back to some of the social media marketing for a second, is that not only do we have, just regular people being a part of these campaigns, we have influencers, we have athletes, we have actors, we have actresses. So many of these well-known people are promoting these products, which is very problematic because many of our youth, young adults, and even adults, they look up to athletes. They look up to, they look up to actors and actresses. They look up to people who are making a difference and, who are being successful in their careers. So when we see that these people are promoting these products and are at the peak of their careers, a lot of the youth and young adults are like, well, if they are looking healthy using these products and are doing good, then I should be okay using these products. But also, again, we're seeing it on TV, radio, billboard. We're seeing it on many of our streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO. So many of these streaming services have e-cigarettes in many of these episodes. And then also they can advertise on radios, billboards, like I said, TVs. And then also point of sale is a big issue as well. Many of these products are at eye level. Many of them are next to the candies and the gums and the chocolates. So again, very concerning that, there's not much regulation with these products and that they can be, they can be sold and promoted in this way. So I think I wanted to take 1 second just to do a quick poll, Louise, before we jump into the health concerns. Okay, so true or false? Flavorings, sleek design, and ability to be concealed are some characteristics of e-cigarettes that make them attractive. True or false? And then Louise, whenever you see that the majority of participants have answered, we can go ahead and see those results. Yes, Good. Yay. 100%. This is what I like to see. Excellent. I think there may have been one more, Louise. Okay. True or false? E-cigarettes are an approved U.S. Food and Drug or FDA quit tobacco device. True or false? Remember back to that slide in the very beginning. Great. So the majority of us got this one right, and it is false. So e-cigarettes are not an approved FDA quit device. Great. So health concerns. I'm going to make sure that I also will give us enough time to have some questions and answers. But so there are a couple of the resources that I'll probably go through quick so that we can just focus in on these health concerns and get to any questions that we may have. All right. So some of the health concerns that have been reported to the FDA with people who are using e-cigarettes are pneumonia, asthma, cardiovascular disease, skin disorders, oral health like mucosal lesions, disorientations, seizure, lung injury, and unfortunately death. So EVALI, which is something that was an outbreak that went across the country right before COVID. We were collecting data from the CDC on this. So EVALI is the e-cigarette vaping associated lung injury. So you look at these symptoms here, and it's very difficult to know whether or not it's EVALI or something else, especially now that we, are living in the COVID-19 world. But many people who said that they had EVALI, they said that they reported these symptoms developing shortly after using an e-cigarette. So a cough, a shortness of breath, or chest pain is really what's going to cause someone to want to go to the emergency room or go to the hospital or seek out their medical provider. Nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea is common. Fatigue, fever, abdominal pain can also be there. But again, it's really going to be that respiratory symptoms that is going to cause someone to want to reach out for help. So e-cigarettes and COVID, as I mentioned, this is something that has been studied, and the director at the National Institute on Drug Abuse, Dr. Nora Volkow, has actually quoted and put out these statements. I was also able to see her at a conference about a month ago, and she spoke a lot about this with e-cigarettes and COVID. So she said, because it attacks the lungs, the COVID-19, it could be especially serious threat to those who smoke tobacco, marijuana, or who vape. She says, it's reasonable to be concerned that a compromised lung function or lung disease related to smoking history, like COPD, could put more people at risk of the serious complications of COVID. So we know that, and evidence suggests that exposure to these aerosols from e-cigarettes actually harm the cells of the lung and actually that ability to respond to infection. So we know that like smoking, vaping is harmful for lung health. And, we know that COVID-19 attacks the lungs. So again, anyone who's using any type of tobacco product or are inhaling any other type of substance, we know that could diminish the ability to respond to infection. And then here's just another image here. There is an article that is out in the Journal of Adolescent Health, and it talks about that association between youth smoking and e-cigarette use and COVID-19. So again, this is just a little image here that shows that the lungs are weakened from breathing in smoke or aerosol, and we know that COVID attacks the lungs, which in turn would show that it would have probably a more severe infection and symptoms with COVID. So I mentioned that there were a couple federal bans that were in play. Unfortunately, it's still able to sell menthol and the Tobacco Virginia Slim. The refillable e-cigarettes were not covered under that ban that was back in January of 2020. So many of the favorites that I mentioned and showed can still be used with the e-juices. And like I mentioned, those flavored disposable e-cigarettes were not covered under that ban. Federal Tobacco 21. So in December of 2019, Congress passed a Tobacco 21 nationwide to go from 18 to 21. There would be no exemptions to the sales of this Tobacco 21 rule. And the law does not address flavored tobacco or nicotine products. So that's why there was that other federal ban that went into play January of 2020. So the federal T21 went into effect December 20th of 2019. Menthol is another thing that we need to be on the lookout for. This year in April, on April 29th, the FDA announced that they will move forward with proposing bans of menthol cigarettes and all flavored cigars. The timeline, we still, we think a year for proposed rules with public comment, but we know that unfortunately the tobacco industry will challenge this. But we know that banning menthol and flavored cigars will save at least 45,000 African American lives annually, because we know that menthol is heavily targeted at our Black and Brown communities. So again, we should be continuing to work on menthol policy as well, and be on the lookout for in the future with these menthol bans moving forward. So what resources can we offer? Again, I'm kind of going to run a little quickly through this because I want to save time for questions. But at the state, I offer a Train the Trainer course to e-cigarettes. So today was just a little peek into e-cigarettes. So what I would go over during these Train the Trainers, and if your group would like to receive a Train the Trainer, I can do that virtually. I've done a virtual Train the Trainer several times during the pandemic. And usually I would say 3 hours would be a good time to do this virtual Train the Trainer. If we were in person, I would make it a full day. But since we know that, Zoom fatigue and being on meetings is definitely something that's there, just knowing that it is available. So what we would go through is how nicotine works in the brain, and we would go through how did we get here with e-cigarettes. So it would go back and talk about how targeted marketing started with big tobacco and how they are moving forward with e-cigarettes now. It's split into different modules. I would go through an introduction to e-cigarettes, talk about the history of them. We would have a more in-depth time to talk about different products that are there, and then also a little bit more in depth about what's really in these products. Then in the second module, I would talk more about why we see that rise in e-cigarettes. We would talk more about data. Because today I just really wanted to give everyone a glimpse inside these products. And then we would focus more on how the industry is marketing and how the industry specifically during the virtual time we're in now is really trying to target people to want to use these products. Then we would go through a lot of the health and safety and social concerns. We would actually watch a video, a very quick video about how nicotine works in the brain as well, talk about the adolescent brain more, go into more of the safety surrounding these products. For instance, many of these products can overheat and explode. The liquid nicotine can cause nicotine toxicity and is fatal in our young kids, because we know that weight, let's say you have a fourth of a teaspoon of liquid nicotine at a certain percentage of nicotine that's in these products. And if a child gets a hold of that, just a few drops, like I said, can cause, the nicotine toxicity and poisoning. And unfortunately, there have been many deaths due to absorption of liquid nicotine. Then we would talk more in depth about the regulatory environment. this section is always changing. There are certain FDA rules, there are certain Michigan rules and laws that are in place. So this would be the time that we'd really dive into all of that, so we would really understand what's going on. Then I would provide you with a leader's guide, materials. Today you are receiving kind of a shortened version of a presentation, just so that we know that you're getting the quick facts over to you all now. But we would actually go through how to present this PowerPoint to your community, and then also provide you with great materials and resources, like how to how to geofence, how to geotag, how to utilize social media, because we know that our youth and young adults are using social media, certain platforms of social media more than others. There is a My Life, My Quit program. If you haven't heard about it, this is a great program that is free for kids. We have a specific website here in Michigan, My Life, My Quit. .com/Michigan here. When you get the slides, you can click that link. So this is the first comprehensive program designed by teens for teens. You get 5 real-time coaching sessions, and you'll have the same coach throughout the entire 5 coaching sessions. We know that sometimes kids do not like to, talk on the phone. So it can be live sessions via chat, via text message, or online. Again, our trainers are trained specifically to work with youth and with tobacco and nicotine to try to quit. So again, we have a lot of great posters and flyers and things that could be shared across your social media, things that could be shared within your schools that you may be working with. So this program, again, the website was updated, and it's more youth friendly, and it has a lot more images that youth were saying we wanted to see on the site. Our michigan.gov/e-cigarette website. We just revamped our website, and on the website, you can find fact sheets, infographics, webinars. We have many fact sheets that are both in English and in Spanish. So again, all of these are downloadable at the website, and we recommend everyone to kind of hop in there and take a look and see if anything in there catches your eye. Keep My Kids Tobacco Free Alliance. This is another alliance that is here in Michigan, made up of over 60 organizations that have committed to sign on to this initiative to keep tobacco products out of the hands of youth and help our adults quit. You can sign up for emails that can give you updates about things that are happening in our regulatory environment. So many people have signed on to be a part of that alliance. This is a great toolkit, the Stanford Prevention Toolkit. They also just recently launched a vaping prevention toolkit. So that just occurred. So that's why I don't have it in my slide set today. But if you go and click these links, you will be able to then get onto that vaping prevention toolkit. And there's also one for marijuana as well. So in these toolkits, there are quizzes that you can print out. There are curriculums that you can be using with youth in your community. So a very great resource to use. So, really, what else can you do? Just, there's a lot of local action that can be taken place. But again, I want to kind of take a little bit of time for some questions. So continue to educate your communities and circles of influence. Keep talking about these and using youth to spread